Friends, this lecture is devoted to writings of Professor Binoy Kumar Sarkar. In the recent past, there has been an attempt to revisit sociology in India and looking for a sociology rooted in the framework of universal values rather than in the Western positivistic framework. Some attempts are being made to study Professor Binoy Kumar Sarkar, Professor Radha Kamal Mukherjee, Professor A.K. Sharan, Professor T.N. Madan again. And in this presentation, I'm going to present about 10 slides in which my ideas of Professor Binoy Kumar Sarkar are summarized. And I'm sharing them with you. I have given my email address on the first slide. If somebody wants to have more discussion with me on the matter, then he or she can always contact me. So I am sharing my slides. This is the title slide, Hindu Sociology 2, Contributions of Binoy Kumar Sarkar. Friends, as I said, in the recent times, there is a revival of interest in the works of Binoy Kumar Sarkar. He discussed on web page of 75th Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. He was the first sociologist of India who coined the term Hindu sociology. He was born in Bengal in 1887 and died in USA in 1949. Along with Sanskrit, he knew English, German, French, and Italian. He was a genius and a prolific writer who wrote on multiple subjects. He wrote on ethics, international relations, and political science. He interacted with the greatest figures of his time in sociology, in arts, in sciences, and traveled and lectured in the most prestigious universities of USA and Europe. He was a major influence on the well-known Indian sociologist Radha Kamal Mukherjee, who taught in Lucknow University for most of his time. And those who are looking for a new sociology based on values, they are trying to read Radha Kamal Mukherjee once again, Professor A.K. Sharan, and Professor K.M. Sharma, and the well-known intellectual of his time, Sri Lankan intellectual Anand Kumar Swamy. Those interested in Binoy Kumar Sarkar may like to have some reading material. So I have listed here some literature of Sarkar. In 1914, he published The Positive Background of Hindu Sociology. The work was done in two parts. The second part was published 7 years later in 1921. In 1916, he published a book, The Beginning of Hindu Culture as World Power. The book was published from Shanghai. In 1916, in the same year, he published Chinese Religion Through Hindu Eyes, a study in the tendencies of Asiatic mentality. The book was published from Shanghai again. In 1919, he published Hindu Theory of International Relations in the American Political Science Review. And in 2022, he published The Futurism of Young Asia from Berlin. And in 1937, he published Social Metabolism in its bearing on progress in social forces. All these are prestigious and international journals. He died at a rather young age of 61. And I wanted to explore the connection between values and sociology because this is the fashion in a certain circle of sociology today. So I also got influenced by that. I thought that a study of Sarkar could be a good starting point. I started reading his work. I was interested mostly in his theory of society. I also read Sukraniti because in the second part of Hindu sociology, he has taken to Sukraniti. And I thought that if I can have access to ideas of Sukraniti in Hindi, which is my mother tongue, they would be better clarified to me. Obviously, I have not read all that he has written, and this is an impossible task for me, for anyone today, to read all that he has written in different languages, in English, in French, in German, in Bengali, in Sanskrit. And still, we can discern the basic tendencies in his writing on the basis of the references that I have given to you. My questions were whether he believed that, and my questions were based on my understanding of what many sociologists today believe. One can develop a new sociology based on Hindu ethics. Hinduism, as understood today, provides a distinct set of philosophical and moral values. In common parlance, something different from Muslim, Christian, Jain, Sikh, or other religions. They are derived from texts such as the Vedas, Manusmriti, Sukraniti, and Gita. Using Emile Durkheim's theory of binarity of sacred and profane, in his imagined society, sacred influences the profane. Otherwise, the work of doing sociology in the value framework would make no sense. Hindu thoughts on ethics, especially Sukraniti, help in resolving the crisis of modern times. I also thought that there is a definite meaning of the term Hindu in Hindu sociology that he has written. This is time to discard positivism and go back to ethics. So this is what I thought before starting reading Binoy Kumar Sarkar. But my understanding of Binoy Kumar Sarkar today is that his ideas were the product of Bengal Renaissance and carried many conflicts and contradictions within them. So it is difficult to say that this is what Binoy Kumar Sarkar meant by a particular concept. Even defining the term Hindu in his writings on Hindu sociology, Hindu international relations, Hindu art, Hindu thought would be a difficult task. His main concern was to imagine India as a strong federal democratic republic, Pax Sarvabhaumika, as it has happened in the past several times in history. Not in recent history, but certainly sometime in the past. He provided a critique of Occidental reasoning that what was Occidental reasoning? Occidental reasoning was the product of European literature about India or about the Orient in general. And that meant that Indians were far behind in both culture and material development. And India needs to forget its past and learn from the European philosophy and science. Even today, I find that when in the field of market or management or other fields, people talk about backwardness of India. Under the influence of Occidental reasoning, they often say that India is lagging behind because of a typical Indian culture. And then they say that these are the aspects of the typical Indian culture because of which India is lagging behind. Sarkar was opposed to that idea. So that is why he provides a critique of Occidental reasoning. And in this respect, he was ahead of Edward Said's theory of Orientalism, which came much later. But there is a similarity in this respect. There is a similarity between Binoy Kumar Sarkar and Edward Said. I started thinking about what does he mean by the term Hindu. To him, Hinduism is inclusive. Till 18th century, prior to invention of steam engine, Hindus, sometimes he uses the term Hindu for Indians, sometimes for Asia, sometimes for a number of countries in this region, uh, which have a similar way of thinking, a similar pattern, a similar philosophy, a similar consciousness. That's why in one of his writings somewhere he said that there was a time when Hindu thought uh, exerted influence on Tatars, Egyptians, Persians, Afghans, Asia Minor, Turks, Japan, and China. This Hindu thought of Binoy Kumar Sarkar is basically Hindu Buddhist thought, and he does not make a difference between Hindus and Buddhists. Uh, he says that at a certain point of time, in the heyday of Buddhism, rulers were Buddhists, people were Hindu, and people easily converted from one religion to another. Actually, they were not even seen as two very different religions. In practice, um, the basic ideas of Hindus and Buddhists among the common people were similar. If there were differences, there were differences among the scholars, but not among the common people. Some people say that uh, India uh, India lost many of its achievements in the field of development, warfare, agriculture, and others because of rise of Buddhism, which is considered to be a pessimist and passive belief. According to Binoy Kumar Sarkar, this is far from truth. And yes, first about Hinduism. Hinduism, according to him, is inclusive. It is Hindu-Buddhist development and thoughts which influenced Tatars, Egyptians, Persians, Afghans, Asia Minor, Turks, Japan, and China at one time. Also got influenced by many outsiders. So also many outsiders and invaders, including Kushans, Tatars, and Yavan. That Sanskrit term for Yavans is Milechas, some of which got the status of Rishi subsequently, have embraced the Hindu tradition. So Hindu tradition was a tradition in exchange with many internal tendencies as well as external tendencies and outside. Hindus went abroad, ideas elsewhere, and ideas and people from elsewhere affected the ideas and people of India. So this is an inclusive term. Even in the heyday of Buddhism, that is considered to be passive, India made great leaps in education, art, science, and architecture. So he does not accept the charge that Buddhism left to some kind of pessimism and passivity in Indian society. It was basically the colonization. So colonization in 19th century that depressed India's spirit and also industry. Colonization is responsible for the present state of despotic affairs. Now, India, he thought, and he was writing in the first and second quarters of 20th century. He believed that now India is to move towards enlightened despotism. And he also believed that developments in science, arts, and ethics are always parallel. He's not trying to say what influences what. But when a civilization advances, when a country advances, when a society develops, it develops parallelly in all respects. So when India was developed, it was developed in science, in ethics, in art, in all respects. And it is difficult to say what influenced what. He justified his position by saying that now the greater India, and in greater India, he includes Indians plus Indians who at that time means who in 20th century, first half of 20th century, were living in Japan, America, England, France, and Germany, are contributing to world literature, religious thought, science and technology, and political ideas, which can guide the whole world. Now, these Indians, the greater India is contributing to thought which can guide the whole world. That means it does not make a distinction between typically Hindu and other religious thoughts of India or thoughts of other religions or other countries. He believes in the universal value system, that ultimately the whole world agrees with the same set of values. This is what his belief was. Indians were fast acquiring industrial and economic investigations. Indians were reading Shakespeare, Goethe, Victor Hugo, Ibsen, and others, and also the best in science and medicine. He had specific reference to Savarkar's translation of Mazzini's autobiography and his ballad of Singhagar that changed the political consciousness of entire India, which was devoted to life of Chhatrapati Shivaji. But he differs from those who think or who are looking for something typically Hindu in his writing. Because for him, modernism is universal. It will be reflected in the same manner in Asia and Euro-America. His term for West. He uses the term Asia and Euro-America, not Asia and West or East and West. Asia is East, Euro-America is the West. He also talked about Swaraj. I was looking for how Binoy Kumar Sarkar reacts to major events of his time. And one of the major events was beginning 1905, the movement for Swaraj, in which many freedom fighters and Gandhiji was a main figure. So Sarkar Swaraj was anti-alien to begin. Swaraj was obviously anti-alien. It focused on Swadeshi and Bahishkar or rejection of foreign materials. But it is also being used internally, and here some kind of socialistic tendencies or egalitarian tendencies in Sarkar are also. So, but it is also being used internally for social equalization of classes. He was familiar with Marxist theory of class struggle, and he talks about that passive resistance against higher classes. He, that means he was also aware of the class struggle and that is taking place in India. Freedom to cultivators, laborers, and lower grade artisans. This Swaraj was also helping in building new schools and hospitals. Ramakrishna Mission in Bengal was quite active in this aspect. And Ramakrishna Mission built schools, hospitals, and many other institutions in the service of people in all parts of the country. In service of Daridra Narayan. Daridra Narayan is a typically Hindu concept which says that God is to be seen in the form of a poor person. If you help a poor person, you are helping the God or you are worshipping the God. Daridra Narayan. Narayan is God in the form of a poor person. But he's not conservative. He's not typically traditional kind of person because he also talks about labor union. State labor unions in Bombay, Bengal, and Madras were formed, culminating in All India Trade Union Congress. He supported, and that may be a controversial point, and some people may not like it, that this Hindu sociologist, who according to him thought in the thought categories of Hindus, supported anti-Semitism of the nationalist socialist movement. Many Bengalis at that time, intellectuals, scholars, freedom fighters, sided with uh, Hitler, and maybe in the hope that, and they did not think that Hitler was doing an injustice to anything. They were mainly interested in fighting the British and making India a free, strong republic, and promoting universal ethics at the world level and creating a just and egalitarian society. So, this attracted my attention in particular that according to Binoy Kumar Sarkar, values are universal. There are no unique Indian, Chinese, Islamic, or Western values. So when we read his Hindu sociology, we should read this from the lens of universality. And as I said earlier, according to Binoy Kumar Sarkar, the best thoughts anywhere in the world are very similar. The best of aesthetics, religion, music, literature, science, and biology, and hagiology are same everywhere. The intellectual and emotional approaches of saints and gods and goddesses in all religions, all parts of the world are very similar. So if you have Sankhya in Hindu and also Vaishnavism or ISKCON, one meets the intellectual needs, another meets the emotional needs. Then you also have Mahayana and Hinduism, and you also have the conservative tradition in Islam and Sufi tradition in Islam. You have similar traditions in all the religions of the world. What the Vedas and ancient rishis of India preached is found in the best literature in all parts of the world and in all religions. This is what Vinay Kumar Sarkar thought. So he cannot be called a typically Hindu. He is a universal man. Influenced by Comte, he believed in positivism as a religion of humanity. Yeah, there is some misunderstanding about uh, Sarkar that he was against positivism. Actually, he was a first-class positivist. But today, our sociologists think that positivism means using a survey approach, statistical numbers, advanced statistical techniques, t-tests, f-ratios. So positivism means uh, a scientific approach, yes, but a scientific approach of a certain kind. That and the next bullet will explain that. So he was, as a matter of fact, the movement of Hindu positivism, which shaped his ideas in Bengal, was inspired by Comte. There was a uh, society for the study of August Comte philosophy in India, to combine Hindu rituals and positivist ideas. According to them, positivism means subordination of science to humanitarianism and individualism to social order. Two things. One, subordination of science to humanitarianism. That is why Binoy Kumar Sarkar talks about material developments, physical development, developments in agriculture, industry, crafts, uh, rules of politics, medicine, chemistry, metallurgy first, and then he talks about issue, Sukraniti. So he believes in a positivism which subordinates science to humanitarianism. So in the first part, he deals with scientific achievements of Hindus. In the second part, he deals with ethics, political ethics, state, and Shukraniti becomes a focus of his attention for that purpose. And individualism to social order. He is against individualism. He is for a social order of certain type. And these things happened in Bengal almost 2 decades before Sarkar was born. And there were associations, groups, scientists, intellectuals, scholars, uh, statesmen uh, who believed in the theory or in the ideas of society for the study of August Comte philosophy in India. That is why perhaps you find that the title of his major work is Hindu Positivism. It is positivism in the sense that it talks about scientific developments, and it is Hindu in the sense that it talks about building a state based on the principles of Shukraniti, ethics, political ethics. Talking about state, he believed that economics is the main source of state's strength. Economics is the main source of state's strength, I'm repeating. Because otherwise, what is said in society, there would become a situation of matsya, big fish eat little fish. And in order to stop the big fish eating little fish, you need a strong state. All societies need a strong state. So he's not that kind of Hindu who will go to Himalayas and practice tapasya or go for Brahma Gyan uh, or self-realization or realization of Atman or Brahman. No, uh, he he believes in thought which would lead to emergence of a strong state in India to submit to sanction, coercion, and punishment, in absence of which big fish will eat little fish. So, explicitly in his writings, you find that political power at different levels, starting with Saman, then Mandalika, then Raja, And there is a long series of them. So there are different levels of power. At the top is Sarvbhaumik or Chakravarti Samrat. And he says that the income of Samant, Mandalika, Raja, and so on, going up to Chakravarti Samrat is this. So what makes the difference? Main difference in levels of power is the difference of income. So obviously he would like to see India develop as a strong economic and industrial state. His belief in a strong, developed and powerful state led him to develop a praise for Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin. As I said, this may be a controversial issue, and many people may not believe or like to see that Binoy Kumar Sarkar had a praise for Hitler. He wanted a strong governmental control. Actually, he said he justified what Hitler was doing. So, in that sense, uh, he belongs to that anti-Semitic tradition or anti-Semitic politics. But he wanted uh, proportionate sharing of resources with Jews. He wanted a kind of benevolent dictatorship. So he wanted a strong governmental control of the economy. So can we say he was a socialist? He was a Hindu and he was a socialist. And not as Mahatma Gandhi practiced via boycott against machinery, inventiveness, engineering skills, technology, or industrialization. In Hindu Swaraj, Mahatma Gandhi rejects medicine, rejects law, and rejects industry. And he boycotts against machinery, inventiveness, engineering skills, technology, or industrialization. This is not the case with Binoy Kumar Sarkar, although he also talks of Swaraj. Swaraj and Sarvodaya. He also believes in Swaraj and Sarvodaya. But in his Sarvodaya, all economic classes, all social classes have a status of equality or are made to move towards uh, equality. Uh, Equality can never be perfect, but you start with a state of inequality between urban and rural areas, industrialists and farmers, upper classes, lower classes, and upper status people and lower status people, say uh, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Shudra, and in between Vaishyas. Move toward a situation in which socio-economic condition and belief systems and values and religious consciousness of all classes and status groups become almost similar. He seemed to be in support of a benevolent dictatorship. So I think this concept of benevolent dictatorship of Sarkar is very similar to concept of dictatorship of proletariat, which will help eventually in establishment of a communist society. So Vinay Kumar Sarkar's Hindu society will be formed much later, but before that, you need a state of benevolent dictatorship. Because in absence of benevolent dictatorship, it is not possible to make progress towards equality and abolition of differences between varnas and classes and urban and rural areas, industries and agriculture, with adequate representation for others. So he accepts others. In benevolent dictatorship, he accepts others. In his praise for Hitler, he accepted the presence of Jews, but he only thought that Jews must be given a proportionate share of Germany. Uh, he was strongly in support of nationalist socialist movement in Germany, and he also believed in sharing proportionate resources with Jews. You can imagine on the basis of this logic, you can imagine that if Binoy Kumar Sarkar is alive today, along what lines he would think. So his view of civilization, to him, Indian civilization was as great as any other civilization. All civilizations are great. They, there are periods of decadence, there are periods of pride. The most sublime thoughts, or most acceptable thoughts, or most recognized thoughts of all civilizations are same or similar. And this is one uh, lesson I learned from reading of Binoy Kumar Sarkar, that universal values he was talking about were not were not only based on uh, Hindu scripts. You will find them present in the New Testament. You will find them present in the Holy Quran. You will find them in the best writing on um, class struggle or in Marxism. So all civilizations had similar problems, conflicts, values, and concerns for this world as well as the other world. So he rejects Max Weber's idea that Indians are otherworldly. Everybody is otherworldly as well as inward. Indians or Hindus were also both otherworldly as well as inward. India had the same future of values, material development, and power as France and Germany, which started a little later than England. There were differences among European countries also. So development started in Britain. Then next to Britain, maybe United States became the most developed country in all respects. Then France and Germany. Now France and Germany are comparable to England and America. And in the same way, um, in the future, India will also be similar to them in both values and material development. In sum, he was an internationalist and humanist, influenced by Gandhi, Tagore. He has taken little from all these thinkers and uh, all these thinkers, statesmen, writers, poets, uh, and reformists, Vivekananda, Savarkar, Sen, physicist, Ray, chemist, Sen, chemist, Ramanujan, mathematician, and uh, other scientists of India, Einstein from outside, the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Sukriti. He was also an admirer of Dharma, Sangha, and transcendental values. The two domains are not separate for Binoy Kumar Sarkar, and both of the science, economic economic advancement, technological advancement, and transcendental values must be reflected in state policy. The problem is that problem that I face in uh, reading Binoy Kumar Sarkar is how to do that. So the only thing I can say toward the end is that there is no need to defy or refy. His ideas are typical of his time and not to be actualized now as such. If you think that on the basis of ideas that he propounded in the first half of 20th century, you can build a new India, a modern India. No, his ideas cannot be implemented as such. But yes, there are certain basic trends in his ideas on the basis of which a strong federal, republic, democratic country can be built, which will take India in all respects, industry, economy, science, arts, medicine, and religious thought and values, which are today found in the most advanced countries. He was responding to many often conflicting there were conflicting demands, they will be reflected in contradictions in his ideas. What these conflicting demands were? For freedom. India should become a free country. For freedom, equality, Swaraj in ideas and practices, building a strong nation state, and above all, the Weberian idea that Indians were otherworldly. I said he was providing a critique of Occidentalism, uh, something which Edward Said did later. Operationalization of a system of ethics or Sukraniti in India of 2024 is not an easy task. Perhaps a daunting or impossible. It's impossible to apply Shukraniti to India. But yes, certain basic ideas of Shukraniti can be taken, and they can provide a critique of state policy, and they can also provide a direction to state policy. I'm planning to do this job a little later. I want to take some ideas from Sukraniti and suggest what kind of reforms are required with respect to our policies for caste, class, urban-rural differences, regional or state-wise differences, and gender. Uh, those siding with him have to operationalize the cognitive model of Hindu ethics in the empirical reality of today. For example, his position on protective discrimination and the question of minority. He ignored the question of minority. And the he this idea of protective discrimination, he has not because this did not exist at that time, so he has not written on this. But what he thought about the place of Jews in German society, we can cull out certain ideas from there and maybe apply them to different groups, different segments of Indian society. He wanted to, but could not write on Muslim contribution to India. D.P. Mukherjee has said this very clearly, uh, that he wanted to, and I have also read in him that Muslim contribution to Asia, uh, ideas of Islam and scholars, saints, travelers, Sufis, uh, that changed or that developed a unified system which can be called Hindu or India. Hmm? He wanted to write on that, but he did not write. Maybe if he had survived longer, he would have written on that. He only thought that Hinduism is the basis of cultural unity in India. And there are many takers of this idea today. That the commonness of India or cultural unity of India is derived from Hinduism, common thought categories or commonness of uh, scriptures, Vedas, Upanishads, uh, and the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Adhyatma Ramayana, and works of Shankaracharya. Otherwise, there are so many differences between different states of India that it sometimes becomes difficult to manage the difference. If there is any unity in India, it is only on the basis of cultural unity of India. Today we have, but today in 2024, we have multiple models of Hinduism, including the political Hinduism. I think that Hindus can gain a lot by reading Binoy Kumar Sarkar and his writing on Hinduism can also, this is a double-edged sword. His writings can also be used for critique of political Hinduism or domination of certain variety of Hinduism in Indian society. He would certainly not support any exclusionary model if alive today. So we have to invent our own inclusive solutions, our own state policies based on the deeper concerns of modern ethics in continuation with Indian tradition, acceptable to federal and democratic state, logical mind, the best contributions of the world intellectuals of our time. And this was his plan, Binoy Kumar Sarkar. Uh, he was reading and commenting on the word intellect. He was familiar with the writing. He was familiar with the writings of all the great intellectuals in science, in arts, and philosophy, religion, and commenting on them very. Of course, he did not read all of them in original, and he was commenting on English translation of European scholars, very much like other Indians of his time did. He was respectful to individuals, but he wanted a social order based on intersubjectivity. So, social order is superior to individual. This is what positivism said. Hindu positivism is not different. Positivism said subordination of science to humanitarianism and subordination of individualism to social order. But this social order is not based on hierarchy or exploitation or domination. This social order is based on intersubjectivity, on, on the idea that all of us uh, are reflection of one God, one Brahman, one reality, one individual power, and uh, therefore there is no justification of permitting any kind of socio-economic, status, legal, religious, or political differences among people. Thank you. I hope this will clarify some of the issues connected with Binoy Kumar. Maybe my reading of Binoy Kumar Sarkar is slightly different from that of the devotees of Binoy Kumar Sarkar. But if we really want to benefit from his writings, we have to interpret them and we have to actualize those ideas in the empirical reality of today's India. And that can be done only by having an inclusive model of Hinduism. Then this you cannot achieve a perfect society in 2024 either by denouncing Hinduism or having a exclusionary concept of Hinduism or political Hinduism. Thank you.